design, and it also talked about technology applications and planning, and many other important topics. The objective of the conference was at promoting Jubail Industrial City, keep up with the latest in the various fields of planning, identify and benefit from the experience of others for future application, recognize disadvantages to avert them, exchange expertise, enhance interaction between government and private sectors, and engineers working in the field of city planning to accumulate further experience, highlight private sector's role in developing urban and architectural planning, and underline the significance of environmental protection and sustainable development in city planning. That's quite a long objective, but let's hope, inshallah, that it will be achieved by the experts and the decision makers and all the people who are involved in such very ambitious and great projects that benefit the whole kingdom. With me in the studio is Dr. Msaad Al-Msainid. I'd like to welcome him to the program. He's the Vice Rector for Projects at King Saud University. And we'll be joined later on by Engineer Ahmed Sultan from Qasim. And also we'll have a few callers who are going to participate in tonight's program. Dr. Msaad, welcome and thank you for your time. We know you've come here on a short notice, and we appreciate the fact that you've given us some of your precious time. Dr. Msaad, can you shed some highlights on this conference, the City Planning, the Jubail City Planning Conference, experience and results?
Thank you for inviting me here on the second channel for Saudi Television. I appreciate the opportunity to talk to our viewers and to yourself about this important conference. This conference was completed today. It was held 2 days. It started on the 10th of January. This conference has been titled as the first international conference in city planning. The Royal Commission for Jubail and Yanbu was the hosting agency for this important meeting. This meeting attracted a lot of urban scholars from Saudi Arabia and from overseas. Most of them are prominent scholars, and also there were some good practices that has been presented in that conference that show success in many parts of the world, including Saudi Arabia. As you started this interview, the conference has a lot of good objectives, and it's an important step toward understanding all the issues related to urban planning from the bigger picture of strategic and comprehensive planning. And also,
if you can allow me, some of the points that were mentioned specifically, there is the strategic and structural planning, which I think is quite important. Can you specifically highlight this particular theme?
Sure. Actually, strategic planning, as you all know, when planning started in the last two centuries, there was some emphasis on detailed planning, small-scale planning. But given there's a lot of interactions between various activities and various aspects of urban planning, there become an increasing need to go more of a higher level towards strategic and structural planning. So strategic planning helps to look to a bigger picture,
yes,
and cover a wide spectrum of subjects and activities in order to make sure that all the interactions are being taken into considerations.
Interesting. There is also the transportation planning as well, if you want to highlight on it. First of all, I understand that there was international participation in this conference. You had people from various countries.
That's right.
Where were the experts from who joined you in this conference, and what was their contribution in what area?
We have a variety of participants. Most of them came from the United States of America. For instance, the guest speaker was Dr. Nahad Toulan, who was Professor Emeritus He's a founder of one of the prestigious urban planning schools in the United States, and actually because of that, the school itself was named after him. Now the name of the school is Nuhat Turan School of Urban Planning. And he is the first Arab and Muslim scholar who has been giving the name of a school in the United States. So he was one of the guests and the keynote speakers. And also there are some prominent scholars from Germany and some of them came
Britain,
from
I
Dubai
guess,
and
Canada.
Yes.
Interesting. There was also a few experts from Malaysia and some other Arab countries as well.
Yes, and also some scholars even from Saudi Arabia, some of them Saudis and non-Saudis.
Okay.
University professors who presented some papers.
Interesting. We're also joined by Engineer Ahmed Sultan, Mayor of Qasim region. We'd like to welcome him to the program. Engineer Ahmed, can you highlight the major challenges facing urban planning in Saudi Arabia?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Thank you for having me tonight. Let me first start with thanking the Royal Commission for Jubail and Yanbu by organizing this very important conference. And I think the subject was really important, and the place was the best place to be. Jubail city, the Jubail industrial city, is an example of the best practices of urban planning. And I think His Highness Prince Saud bin Nahyan, the chairman of the Royal Commission of Jubail and Yanbu, made a very good job by organizing this conference. And I think the major challenge now facing us in urban planning is the land ownership. We have few lands left owned by cities, and that making our job very difficult to make a good neighborhood. There is something with the sound echoes. Please, can you? Can you?
Can hear you very well. Please go on.
Help me with that.
Yes, we can hear you very well.
Yeah, but I have a very strong echo.
Apologize for that. We'll definitely we will sort it very shortly, Engineer Ahmed. Back to you, Dr. Msaad. There's also the technology applications in planning. This is a very important point. Now, to avoid, having to spend a lot of money on conventional solutions, I think technology can save you time, effort, and money. So, can you highlight this particular theme?
Well, yes, we all know that technology has become an important part of our lives today. And cities, just like humans, are organic. They grow, they change based on changes that circumstances that affect them. And certainly technology has strong impacts today and has been in the past in our today's cities. Improvements in technologies allowed cities to grow to a large size as we see today. And also the improvements in technology might end up to decentralize most of our cities to a smaller parts, since communication has become easier and also more spread to a wide variety of the society. The digital revolution today has his big impact on today's city. We are hearing a lot of people talk about smart cities, smart buildings, and now we have to think about how we're going to, first of all, change our existing cities to be much more smarter in achieving what we need. And also, when we design new cities, we have to make sure that it take into consideration all the new technologies that been in the market.
Right, especially cities that were hit by the rain I think Jeddah
yes,
is far away from being smart. We really need to work on it quite seriously. Engineer Ahmed Sultan, Mayor of Qasim region, the point of master planning, do you think it has been implemented here in Saudi Arabia quite seriously, and has it succeeded?
Unfortunately not. The major reason, I think, I still have the echo, by the way. Can you hear me?
We can hear you very well.
Can you hear me, please?
Yes, we can.
Okay, but still I have the strong echo. Anyway,
we will solve it.
I think the idea of master planning was not a successful practice because of, again, land ownership. Since we don't have total authority on land, it would be very difficult to implement a master plan. I am not an urban planning expert, but I have seen so many master plans failing to be applied as they were planned because of the obstruction by protesting by the landowners. They don't want the land use that the master plan is suggesting. So I think the master planning technique is the best when you have total authority on the land. So maybe Jubail Industrial City, or now the Ras Al-Zur or Yanbu' is an excellent examples of a successful master plan.
Yeah, but Engineer Ahmed, I think another reason is the fact that master planning requires joint efforts. It requires that various government and possibly private sector agencies need to work together very closely to align their objectives, to align their efforts, and to make sure that they all work towards master planning. And this is where the difficulty lies.
You're right. I think so. But still, I don't think that was the main reason behind the, let me call it, the failure of master planning. The main reason is the land ownership, I think.
Okay, so ownership is the issue. Back to you, Dr. Saad. I think this is a very important point that we need to discuss and make sure that the decision makers really listen to us and hear us, because what happened in Jeddah and what happened in some other cities as well, maybe at a lesser degree, of chaotic parts of the city that need better planning, that need real attention from the municipalities and from the concerned agencies. I think this has to be attended to very immediately.
Well, I agree with Engineer Ahmed that we have a lot of failures in master planning techniques, and that failure not only in Saudi Arabia but also in most countries, and mainly because of the rigidity of master planning. Master plan, when it's designed as a picture and as an image to achieve, it fails. But when it becomes a dynamic element that change and modify as things change in the future, then it can succeed. And also, again, in planning, because of the future, that you have unknown future, you have to be flexible enough to accommodate any changes that can happen in the future. So that's why we moved on to an idea of comprehensive planning, strategic planning, in which we set the bigger picture and we set a set of rules that will help to control development.
Okay.
And what we have problem today, not of land ownership in itself, but of land control. I think we didn't push on so hard in controlling the use of land. Actually, in Saudi Arabia, we have succeeded in devising what they call urban growth boundary, which is a growth management technique that controls the growth of cities. And we were one of the few countries in the world that adopted a policy at the higher level, which is at the Council of Ministers, And it has succeeded in many cities in Saudi Arabia of limiting the sporadic growth of many cities. We've seen it in Riyadh. When that policy was adopted in 1986, we have almost 40% of vacant lands within the city. But in 15 years' time, this has dropped to 30%, which means it has succeeded to invert development from going outside to a wider range of areas to infilling what is being vacant inside. Unfortunately, that we didn't continue that process. Had we continued that process, then we could have achieved a better city, a more environmentally friendly city, and also more responsive to changes. One of the presentations in that conference, coming back to that conference, was by Dr. Tulan, which hopefully he could be part of this meeting.
Sure.
Is that he's presenting about growth management in the state of Oregon. And the main purpose of that policy was to protect farmland, which for us is protecting Wadi system. And what happened in Jeddah, and what unfortunately could happen in many Saudi cities, is that we didn't protect Wadi system. And the Wadi system is designed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help control any major damage that can happen from increased level of rainfall. So I think what we need really is to devise more controls, to give it more powers, and mainly that powers should come from council ministers, not from a municipality. Municipality doesn't have much power to control. And with that, I think we can have better cities and more friendly cities.
But you see, the thing is, with the concerned agencies, I mean, could you tell us who are we talking about here? Who are the concerned parties or agencies that are responsible for master planning or the success of master planning, and what should they do now?
I think the primary agency for master planning is Ministry of Municipal and Rural Affairs. That's the primary agency that should...
The primary player?
Yes.
Okay.
But then it cannot succeed without the help of Ministry of Finance, all service delivery ministries, just like, Ministry of Power, Ministry of Water, because without, a well-organized plan between service provision and development, then you could reach to a level that areas developed without services, or vice versa. You have services in a land that will never be developed. So it's become a waste of land.
Exactly, exactly. There's also the issue, let me ask this to Engineer Ahmed. Engineer Ahmed, we are facing huge problems in the world, especially the issue of climate change and other issues. And these might affect, definitely we are part of this world, and we will be affected by that. If our cities are not ready for such dangers or changes in the climate, definitely we will be susceptible to having serious problems in our cities, just like what happened in Jeddah. Now, who do you think should really push here and start serious work on the issue of developing our cities?
This is rather a very complicated question, I think. I don't think one agency could do such a job alone. This should be a master plan that could be implemented to save our cities now from such catastrophes. And it will cost a lot of effort and needs too much resources. Such a question needs a book to be answered.
Definitely, but if you can briefly tell us about your own perspective.
Of what?
Of what needs to, of who should be really the leader, the driver or the leader of such a project? Which agency?
Well, I agree with Dr. Msaad that the Ministry of Municipal and Rural Affairs is the major player in city development in the kingdom, but it cannot do such a huge job alone. It needs help from Ministry of Finance again and from other ministries. You name it, you just name it.
Okay. It's actually the point of coordination or coordinating the efforts. The point, that's the element that could make the whole thing successful. Another theme which was covered in this conference is the sustainable development and green cities. I think that's an interesting aspect that we should highlight here.
Okay, yeah, that's true. Actually, it becomes a worldwide movement now of having green cities and green buildings. And why we're doing this? Because we are facing problems of depletion of natural resources. And without thinking about changing our cities to utilize renewable resources of energy, we are facing big troubles. And recently, President Obama and the United States have issued a decree that forced cities in 20 years' time to have 1/4 of its energy use from renewable resources, which means a major movement of changing not only the city planning, but also building design, building utilities, services to be provided. All of them, they have to change in order to achieve that target. And we have to think about that. The movement of Green City will help in that direction. The more we become friendly to the environment, the more we're going to have a better city for our people.
Exactly. There's also the issue of working with the private sector. I think the private sector has a great role here, especially in the greening of the cities. Let me ask Engineer Ahmed if he can share his thoughts with us on this particular point. The greening of our cities is definitely an ambitious idea, but where do you think the private sector could contribute, or how?
Well, greening a desert city is a big challenge. You need water where it's a very scarce resource, and the humidity is very low. Temperatures are very high, and in the winter the temperature gap is extremely high. It's a challenge. But we have had a very good practice in Al Qasim region, and I think we can teach something to people about our experience here. I invite all practitioners of greening to visit our cities and see some of our practices. I think the private sector could do a lot in developing professional techniques in irrigation and planting, and also help us selecting the right species of plants to be adapted to our environment.
How do you assess the city planning in Saudi Arabia, Engineer Ahmed?
Again, a big question, but let me tell you about two major problems that we have in city planning. I think that urban sprawl is number one, and then mixed land use is the second. Urban sprawl is denying us from having a good public transport. It's costing us a lot to do infrastructures and utilities. And also mixed land uses are making our life difficult, because you start living in a house where it is in a quiet residential area, then in no time intruders let me call them intruders, the business people are very adjacent, and then damaging the environment of the neighborhood. These are the two major problems, I think, facing our city urban planning now.
So what is your assessment, of city planning? Is it going reasonably well?
Well, I think Dr. Msaad could answer this question better because he's an expert in urban planning. As far as I have seen, it's okay, but we need a lot to do to improve it.
Interesting. Dr. Msaad, before we, Engineer Ahmed, before we say goodbye to you, I know you're in a hurry for another commitment. One last comment before we leave you. Such a conference sounds really good, yeah? And the themes and the objective of it are excellent and wonderful. But putting it in reality and in practice is really the main question here. Is it easy to implement such ambitious ideas?
Well, you don't have to implement all of what is being portrayed there. You just need to learn some of the best practices internationally and to be cautious about the problems that experts are highlighting. I think when you plan a new city or a new neighborhood, you have a good chance to follow such good practices.
Well, Engineer Ahmed Sultan, Mayor of Qasim Region, thank you very much for being with us. Hope, inshallah, we can have you again in our programs. Back to you, Dr. Msaad. Again, the same question. I think all these interesting papers that were discussed and presentations that were delivered during the conference sounds really good, and I hope we can implement them. Were there any interesting recommendations at the end of the conference that could be implemented?
Yes, certainly. And in most of the conferences, yes, as Engineer Ahmed said, they highlight issues. They pinpoint to problems that other places are facing and how they overcome that. So this is a good experience to proceed with. But again, there are some recommendations that will emphasize the need of sustainable development and becomes a rule in any future development. The second is the use of technology is become a paramount of future growth, and in which it's important that in any future plan that we take it into consideration. And also there were emphasis on developers and their important role in constructing cities. As my colleague Dr. Khalid said, that cities are built by developers. Yes, controlled by municipalities, but developers who build cities.
Exactly.
And we should migrate gradually from stronger public influence on land development to a more organized public-private partnership in developing our future cities.
Exactly.
And good ideas usually, they don't come from the public sector. Mainly, most successful projects that we see in the Western world comes from the private sector.
Sure.
So that's why
it's very competitive, and they have to come up with the creative ideas.
Yes.
But Dr. Msaad, I think the issue is, especially for developers and real estate business generally, is the fact that there is no regulator, a clear body that really takes care of the whole business. That's the issue.
Well, it is. Actually, fortunately, I'm a member of the Saudi Association of Real Estate.
Okay.
That is under the umbrella of King Saud University. We are, as the committee of the association committee, we are working hard now to devise rules and regulations that will regulate this industry. It's a very important industry.
Yes.
It affects the national economy, affect people, and unless there's a clear agency that will take care of this business, I think we're going to be in a trouble. We are calling for a High Commission for Real Estate in Saudi Arabia, and it's crucial that High Commission will regulate and also put its procedures and all the levels that will help municipalities developing better cities. Actually, we are in a few months' time holding our first conference in that manner, and hopefully from that conference, with the support of Prince Salman, bin Abdulaziz and Prince Santab, and also all the ministries that are affected by the real estate industry, that will help in pushing that idea into reality. Real estate development is an important element in our national economy, and we all should work hard to help that.
Yes.
The Real Estate Association is conducting a study today for Shura Council, in which one of the main objectives of that study is to start those rules and regulations of the real estate industry.
Exactly. It's pretty, because there are many loopholes in the industry or in the system itself that need to be looked at very seriously. We have Dr. Musleh Al-Ataibi on the phone, who's the CEO of the Royal Commission of Jubail and Yamba. He's going to join us in a few minutes, so we look forward to that. Dr. Msaad, so how far are we from having a specialized body, or a body that regulates real estate business and development of our cities generally?
Yeah. Well, I think we need some time. We need to study it well first. I don't think it's success to create it with no set of rules and also authority and also responsibilities. I think it's crucial for us to study it well, to put all the required elements for success of that agency. We don't want to start something and fail it.
I just hope that there will come a day very soon when you look at very developed neighborhoods here in Riyadh or in the big cities and in the small cities, where you can buy a piece of land or a house with all the facilities around you available, entertainment place, or gardens, or a little park for the children to go and play, with water facilities available, electricity and everything, pavements, irrigation and all that, everything, sewage, everything should be ready and available for the citizen and the residents, because it is really, we hear lots of complaints about new neighborhoods, and they're new. This is the problem, that they are new and they still lack certain major services, which is quite unfortunate. Dr. Musleh Al-Ataibi, the CEO of the Royal Commission of Jubail and Yamba, is with us now. Dr. Musleh, thank you for your time and welcome to the program.
Thank you, Mr. Ahmed, and I welcome you and welcome your guest, Dr. Saud and Mr. Ahmed.
Could you highlight the importance of such a conference, and how do you think it's going to contribute to more and better planned cities in Saudi Arabia?
Yes, sure. Actually, first of all, I would like to thank His Highness Prince Saud bin Nahyan for really following up those issues in the Jubail Industrial City. And the conference aims is to promoting Jubail Industrial City, keep up with the latest, in the various fields of planning, and identify and benefit from the experience. We bring people here to benefit out of them. So Jubail Industrial City is a great model for a great urban planning for the whole kingdom and the whole, maybe, world also. So why we have it here in Jubail? Because Jubail is a good case, it's a good example. But it's not the only case that we would like to have it because of Jubail, to enhance also interaction between government and the private sector and engineers working in the field of the city planning, to accumulate further experience, highlight the private sector's role also. And Prince Saud also was really following us to benefit from that, because we have some cases, it's a live cases. Now, Royal Commission is taking care of Ras al-Zur. So we are going to build another city. And this is a great for the country in general. So by having this conference, we actually ask everybody to participate in this topic. And also, I ask my people here to also make another workshop which is related to the cases of Jubail, like the city center. We are building a city center. So the conference, it's in general, it has a lot of expert people over there. Jubail Industrial City, it's a good example, but Also, we need to put what do we have and what we are planning to do in front of the people on the table to benefit from them. And if we find some people will continue working with us, that will be a great.
Mm-hmm. But there should be some kind of a mechanism, Dr. Musleh, because we have a success story. This is an excellent example of a well-planned city. Why not copy it, as you mentioned? Why not copy that, city or the success that we've achieved there in other cities? I mean, there has to be some kind of mechanism.
This has been asked by every single person, I think, in the conference. It had been asked by every Saudis in the kingdom. It's a great question, and we need to answer that question. Mm-hmm. Since we have the ability, the kingdom itself and the government supporting this, I think all what we need really a big decision to go ahead and to look for what makes Jubail and Yanbu like that. It's a great planning. It's a great effort by the king at that time, and also right now. So what we need, just to see what things forbidding other cities to copy Jubail and Yanbu. Actually, we have a great support from the government, and by taking role of the whole city. So Royal Commission is taking care of everything. So we are responsible about transportation, about education. So when we build in anything, we have like the whole picture in front of us. So we link every single item with other. So there is no gap between bridging or roads or any other issue. So this is what make really Jubail and Yanbu succeed 100% by planning and implementing and building a great city. So now we are going to Ras Al-Zur. Ras Al-Zur, we are doing the same. We were going to do the same city, which is going to be a good example, which is going to be really a good model, and King Abdullah is supporting that. The government is supporting that. Prince Saud is really following, every hour, every day, that. So he cares about, we need to repeat Jubail and better than what we have in Jubail and Ras Al-Zur. So we do have the ability in the kingdom. We do have the good engineers. We do have the good experience from Jubail and Yanbu, so we can do it. But why we don't copy it to other city? I think this question should be bring to higher decision maker people and to see if it is possible to copy it or not.
Interesting. In this regard, Dr. Musleh, can you tell us about your future plans? You talked about Ras Al-Zur, but what else are you planning to do in this regard, in city planning, or particularly in contributing to better city planning?
Yeah, actually, the Royal Commission the vision is clear for us. Really, we are trying to attract investors, and as much as we could to invest in the kingdom, in the petrochemical and in the minerals right now in Ras Al-Zur. So we have a clear vision that we need to support the economic of the country. And how we can do that? By attracting and bringing the best investors to the kingdom. Yes. And this is the role of the Royal Commission, that we build the infrastructure, we prepare for this investors what exactly they need of all facility, also the manpower. We are taking care of the manpower through our colleges and institute where we can prepare the right manpower, because if you ask anybody to come and to invest, he can bring his factory, whatever petrochemical industry he has, but he needs electricity, he needs water, he needs cooling water, he also in big need for manpower. So all of this, actually, we look at it. So we're working, to really achieve most of the requirements for those people. So the future for the Jubail Industrial City, actually, we expand Jubail 1 to Jubail 2, and we are ready to go for Jubail 3. All of this that we offer the right place for the right people, the right industrial, because we have one of the largest industrial city in the world in Jubail. So we need to actually increase in the city, to increase the income of the country in the petrochemical area. So Jubail 1 and Jubail 2 and Jubail 3, so we are doing fine. Now we are going to Ras Al-Zur, and we make synergy between Ras Al-Zur and between Jubail, because synergy means what? We have to make like a connection. So we have a big road. We have 3 roads right now between Jubail and Ras Al-Zur. We will be, sending some materials from like Hadid company, steel to Ras Al-Zur, and phosphate also from here to also Ras Al-Zur. So our future is a big vision that we're trying really to increase the industrials, as much as we could.
Dr. Muslih, we're definitely proud of your efforts and of the Commission's efforts, and all the best to you and to your team. Thank you very much for being with us.
You're more than welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Muslih Al-Ataibi, CEO of the Royal Commission of Jubail and Yamba. Dr. Msaad, I think very interesting points that Dr. Muslih spoke about. Would you like to comment on any of the points that he mentioned?
Well, I would like to thank Dr. Muslih for his contribution. And also I would like to highlight here that success usually comes from control. And I think what the Royal Commission of Jubail and Yamba has succeeded is it maintained control of the whole city, in which becomes the governing body. All the rules and regulations were set by that governing body. And also they have created a good planning department in which they enforced all what has been planned for. So that's critical. I think what we lack in our cities is control. Yes. And the issue, the idea of local governance is critical. And without local governance, without strong power that will coordinate and also enforce all the rules and regulations, and also set all the future developments in one clear development stages, then we will fail. And unfortunately, we couldn't do it in our cities. Ministry Mamra, which is Ministry of Municipal and Rural Affairs, doesn't have the power to enforce what has been planned for.
Interesting. With us is Dr. Nohad Tolan of Portland State University. Dr. Tolan, thank you for being with us. You spoke about urban growth management approaches, practical lessons. Could you highlight this particular theme and what you spoke or what you told the audience in your session?
First of all, thank you for asking me. And what I basically tried to tell the attendees in the conference is that we need to reevaluate what we think growth management is all about, because growth management usually tends to be interpreted as dealing with the fringe, with the outside of the region, and as a result of that, we end usually with urban sprawl. We are continuously expanding the regions, while in reality we have too many vacant tracts of land on the inside. We need to increase the efficiency of the inside. And at the same time, our societies are changing. We are aging societies even in countries which are still fairly young, like Saudi Arabia. But we have a growing number of elderly people. Lifestyles are changing. Economic development approaches are changing. The type of industries that we need to be dealing with are changing. So in essence, we just cannot focus all the time about the expansion of the urban region. We need to think and understand what's going on the inside also, and see whether the kind of things that we can do on the inside will actually alleviate the problems that we face on the inside. In